For many people, turning 30 can be a very depressing time. Your 20s are gone. You're no longer really young. You're not quite old. You should maybe have, stuff figured out by now. A lot of people start to feel a bit of anxiety. They start to feel some despair. Some of this can reach a boiling point as they turn the big 3-0. Dr. Kevin Brennan is with us. He's a licensed clinical psychologist and expert on this generation's THRISIS phenomenon. Dr. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So a THRISIS, this is not a quarter-life crisis. It's not a midlife crisis.
No.
It's a THRISIS.
It's a THRISIS specific to us in our 30s, yep.
Okay, so explain to us what happens in a person's mind that causes them to start having a THRISIS?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the idea that we should really be happy by now. We had our college years. We went through trying to figure ourselves out. And for most of us, our parents told us, do whatever you want, just make sure you're happy. And, a lot of people are not happy and wondering how come that happened. You were given every opportunity. We have 360 degrees of choice to decide, and we should try to pick right. And that creates a lot of anxiety for this entire generation.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people, especially I hear a lot of younger people in their early 20s, and they kind of feel like, oh, well, I could do whatever I want now. It's all going to work out for me.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of have that mentality of it's all going to work out for me. I'm going to be fine. It's going to work out. And I'm like, I have a news flash for you. It always doesn't work out, and it's not always fine.
Yeah. The implicit part about that is that in your 20s, you get to kind of put off all of these decisions. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes around 30, you realize that you've been putting it off for so long that you haven't really made any big decisions. Or if you have by then, it's a time for really reevaluating, like, is this career right for me? Is this guy right for me?
Yeah.
Do I keep going with this, or do I, blow it all and shift to something new to try to find my passion?
I guess it's better to have a THRISIS than to have a midlife crisis in a lot of ways, because you're still young enough to kind of shift gears and change. A lot of men and women, when they have that midlife crisis at 45, 50 years old, it's like, kind of too late. You're married, you have a bunch of kids, you already have a career you've been in for 20 years.
Exactly. For the midlifers, it's about taking your head out of the sand after your life has pretty much passed by and saying, WTF, like, what did I do?
Right.
But the good news is that specific to our generation, because we were expected to try to figure all this out earlier, and we were given our 20s to try to do that. Mm-hmm. We're actually having our midlife crisis now. I don't think that this generation is even going to have much of a midlife crisis because we're taking care of it early.
Oh, so you're saying the THRISIS is actually a good thing?
Well, it's a good thing in the sense of, we have more time to work it out and, make those tough decisions before it gets too late, definitely. But it's also, it's a time of an experience as well. That's one thing that the midlifers have on us is that, they have their priorities in order by then. And we're still struggling to figure out what our priorities are.
So is this a type of crisis that our parents had? Did they have THRISIS? Did they go through the THRISIS?
Not at all, no. Our parents, and if you want to go further back, our grandparents, by the time they were 30, they had kids, they had a mortgage, they had mouths to feed, they had a job that they couldn't get out of, and they had too many responsibilities by the time they were 30.
Okay.
That's why they've been putting it off for so long. Now that, when the kids leave for college and the mortgage is paid off, then they come out and go, oh, wait, what was I doing all this time? How come I haven't found my happiness?
And that's when the guys go and get a sports car and a young girlfriend.
Exactly.
They're like, wait a minute, I'm going to relive my 20s.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, and the women go get the pool boys, too.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So the THRISIS is kind of a new thing. We're basically living our midlife crisis early. I could certainly see that. I mean, many of my girlfriends and myself even kind of have been going through that THRISIS. I do actually think the year 2010 for me was kind of an eye-opening year where I was kind of looking at my friendships and looking at my relationships, looking at my religion. I mean, I really looked at everything and thought, is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to do? And I didn't recognize it as a THRISIS, but I guess
that
now
sounds
looking...
like it.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yep. A major reevaluation is what the key is. Just like for a midlifer, the major reevaluation of where they are in their life. We do the same thing, only we're doing it because we're getting to that point of no return.
Yeah.
And it's either like we go with it or we shift entirely, and that creates a lot of anxiety to figure it out now.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I ended up renting this swanky apartment, decorating it to make it all chic. I ended up taking a lot of vitamins, realizing I'm getting old, right? I was like, I need to take my vitamins.
Relying on the rules if we should have it together because our parents had it together by this age.
Yeah, well, sometimes our parents have a tendency to point that out to us, don't they? They're like, by 30...
Well, that's just it. In the beginning they tell you, you know what, do whatever you want. You can be a painter, you can be a snowboarder, you can do whatever, just so long as you're happy. But then by now they're talking and complaining like, why aren't you happy?
Yeah, and where are your kids? Where's your husband?
Right.
What's wrong with you, Yeah, when I was 30, I had a house, I had 3 kids.
Exactly. My parents too.
Yeah, all right. Well, what are the downfalls of the thrisis? When do you know that the thrisis has gone too far?
Well, I think, when it becomes kind of, obviously when anxiety gets to a stage where it's really affecting your ability to function even with what you got. Either, your relationships are starting to go to pot or your work is suffering because you're not into the job anymore. And what that's doing is actually the anxiety and the despair is making your choices even more and more limited. Because you could be a stellar work performer and not really care about the job, but at least you have options then.
Right.
But if you turn to be kind of a really bad worker, then your options are limited. You're not going to get that recommendation letter. And so that's the time where you really have to, try to get a different perspective, maybe see a shrink like me or something like that to figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dr. Kevin, thank you so much for joining the show tonight. Dr. Kevin Brennan, he's a clinical psychologist. He is featured in the book, Your So-Called Life, A Guide to Boys, Body Issues, and Other Big Girl Drama You Thought You Would Have Figured Out by Now. We're actually going to be speaking to the author of that book next. You can go to Dr. Kevin's website, drkevinb.com. Coming up, like I mentioned, she literally wrote the book on going through a thrisis, how to survive it, how to actually enjoy your 30s without looking in the mirror and thinking you're old, because you're not, girl. Stick around. It's Your Time with Kim Iverson.